Hey there, RC Girl here. We are turning this box of parts into the most scale Formula One RC car I can build. And we're bringing it 5,500 miles across the world to my first ever Formula One race in Barcelona, Spain. I modeled this after Formula One driver Carlos Sainz 2024 Ferrari. This build took pretty much every skill I've learned in the radio control hobby so far: 3D printing, building, painting, soldering, custom decals and lighting. We're gonna walk you through the build, and if you're a new fan like me, get you up to speed on Formula One. Never too late to be a new fan. Maybe we'll even get my car signed by Carlos Sainz in Barcelona. You'll have to stay tuned until the end. Let's take it away. If you guys are new to my channel, I'm all about helping people grow in the radio control hobby. Here you're gonna find RC reviews, tips and tricks, unboxings, hobby shop tours, events, and more. So if you don't wanna miss my next video, make sure to subscribe. 3D printing was a big part of this video, so I'm super grateful to our sponsor, JLC 3DP. They are an online 3D printing service where you can upload your files, select the material, lots to choose from. They will give you an instant quote, print out your items, and ship them directly to you. Pretty cool. So if you don't have a 3D printer and want to print out some of the items from this video, or you want to try materials that aren't standard for most at-home printers like metal and nylon, check out JLC 3DP. I also got rid of my resin printers last year, so you can print out in resin, super smooth finish, lots of different resin types, even clear. They do ship from overseas, so expect a couple more days shipping time, but they came nicely packaged, arrived in one piece. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with how they turned out. The quality of these test prints look so nice. This is actually my first time seeing a metal 3D printed item. This is a spur gear for my F1 build in metal, so we can actually test out the durability of it. Kind of cool. I also started my Element Trail Runner build a couple years ago. Didn't have the opportunity to finish the build, so I got a couple nice customs parts actually printed in nylon. They look so good. So the next time you need some items 3D printed or some prototypes in different materials, definitely check out JLC 3DP. I'll put a link to their website in the description box below with a small discount code upon checkout. Huge thank you to JLC 3DP for sponsoring this video. Now back to my F1 build. So Formula One, what's the big deal? What's it all about? Formula One started in 1950, so it's been around over 70 years. It's basically the epitome of motorsports racing with open wheel car designs that go over 200 miles an hour. Essentially, there are 10 different teams. Each team has 2 drivers. The teams race at circuits all around the world in a 9-month racing season with the goal of racking up as many team and individual points as possible. These are some of the highest paid athletes in sports. Even though it is pretty elitist, Formula One has a bunch of diehard fans all around the world. My cousin, who is the one that invited me to the race in Barcelona, is a Carlos Sainz fan, so of course we had to build a scale Formula One car modeled after Carlos Sainz SF-24 Ferrari. All right, so the chassis I picked out was actually something I purchased myself from Amy & Hobbies, a retailer we toured in my very last video. There are several F1 kits out there in the radio control world. I'll link to all of them in the description box below, including a discount code for the one I got. I went with a popular budget-friendly option, the 1/10 scale Tamiya F104 Pro 2 kit, which goes for around $219 in the US at the time of filming this. This is a platform that people actually race with in the radio control world. It's affordable, has good product support, and there were lots of 3D prints available for it. So I thought it was going to be a great platform for this build, even though it's not the 2024 Ferrari body. It comes in a bunch of pieces. You have to assemble it yourself, as well as supply the electronics, tools, and paint. It comes with a clear Lexan body, which we're going to paint up Ferrari red. It does come with a set of Tamiya livery decals. I actually went with an aftermarket Ferrari decal set, which is available from rcdecals.co.uk. They have a lot of different livery options available across many years to match specific years and manufacturers, so definitely check them out. And a huge shout out quickly to my fellow RC enthusiast, Jason Hood, who we met at Superior RC during my hobby shop tour there last year. He showed me his Exotech F1 build there, and he races these. He had the exact set of Ferrari decals I needed lying around and sent them my way, so huge thank you to him for that. All part steps in this kit are nicely labeled in bags for each of the assembly steps, and for this build, I'm really focused on scale looks over performance, so if you're going to be racing one, you'll probably want to follow a different setup than what I'm doing. This is my very first Tamiya kit, if you can believe that, after being in the hobby for so many years. It's technically a 2017 body and chassis design, so we're gonna have to get creative and do some custom 3D prints and mods to get this to look more like the SF-24 Ferrari. Another thing to know about F1 is that they constantly make chassis modifications and the regulations change frequently. So you can see here the front wing, the halo, the side mirrors on the Tamiya kit are completely different than the 2024 look that we're going for. But fear not. If you're into 3D printing, there is an open source, completely free, fully 3D printable 1/10 scale F1 chassis available from OpenRC, and they release new components over the years as parts are updated. These are nearly compatible with the Tamiya F104, so we took some parts from that for this build and just made some changes to the mounting points, and they look amazing. Well, I'll talk about all the 3D prints I did for this a little later in the video. Stay tuned for that. And as far as how long this takes, you could probably finish it in the course of a weekend. It's a pretty straightforward build. It took me a little while since I was filming and also 3D printing and test fitting a lot of stuff. So I worked on it over the course of about 2 months on and off. But if you're doing it straight through, I see no problem with getting that done in a weekend. In addition to the standard hex set, a few tools that will really help out with the build. I really like my Ryobi electric screwdriver, but be careful not to over tighten anything. Tighten most of the way, then go in to tighten the last few turns by hand to make sure you don't strip anything out. A new tool I just found out about, which changed my life, the cup tool for assembling rod ends on your links. Next, I really like shock pliers. These help out with grabbing the shock shaft without ruining them, and also for holding links. I sell these in my shop if you're interested. Also, tire bands are going to be super helpful for gluing on your tires. Lexan scissors and a body reamer. I also sell these in my shop. Scissors for cutting out the Lexan body and a reamer for drilling tiny holes to attach accessories. I'll put links to everything in the description box below. And for a quick chassis overview, it has a 270mm wheelbase. This comes with a ball bearing differential, open diff. It's rear wheel drive. You're going to get a single center cantilever shock here, very low travel, super low ground clearance. So this is definitely something you want to run on a super smooth surface. You can also slightly change the ride height by a couple millimeters by swapping around a spacer in the rear axle. We have a mix of plastic, aluminum, and carbon components throughout the chassis. Decent hardware throughout. The kit also provides body posts that use pins for mounting the body, but I didn't want to drill into the body, so I added a custom magnetic mod with some posts I 3D printed so the body snaps on there really nicely without detracting from the scale look. As far as electronics, we had to pick up a steering servo, motor speed control, transmitter receiver, and a 2S LiPo battery and charger. For my servo, I went with the Speedtech RC SPV608. I'll put the specs on the screen. It even had my logo printed on it, so cool. I got this one from JJ Customs as a gift when I toured their shop earlier this year. I'll link up to that video. These are available on his website. Ample speed and torque. Smaller size makes it a great option for the tight squeeze underneath the F104 chassis. For my motor speed control, I went with the 25.5 Hobby Wing Juice Stock censored fixed timing motor with a programmable XR10 G3S speed control. Again, I was concerned about the tight fit underneath the body, but this one fits perfectly. This is a great setup for the casual stock class racer or for someone who wants to practice racing. If you're a seasoned RC racer though, you'll probably want an adjustable timing motor, something like this new V10 G4. More tuning there for different tracks. With this motor ESC setup, you'll have to be comfortable doing your own soldering as well. It comes with really nice extra long high gauge wire that you'll have to cut to size. You can also take it into a hobby shop and have them do it for you. And one of my next videos will actually be a tutorial on basic RC soldering so you can learn and do it from home. For my battery, I used what I had lying around that would fit because it is a tight squeeze in there. This is a NHX 2S 5000 milliamp LiPo battery, definitely on the bigger end of size and weight, so I'd probably go for a smaller racing pack, but this fit and I could use what I had on hand. For my receiver transmitter combo, I used a Spectrum SR515. I'm only using 2 of the channels, one for steering, one for throttle. So 3 spares, a little overkill, but again, using what I had lying around. And for my transmitter, I originally had this program into my DX5 Pro where you can program tons of different models. But since I was going to be traveling with it, I wanted something lighter weight and smaller. So I bound it to a DX3 and it did the job. Next, let's talk about the body. This was super important in getting the scale looks correct. I had to get a perfect color match. I tried out quite a few Lexan paints with a matte clear top coat, and I ended up going with the Duratrax Racing Red with Tamiya black accents and flat clear over the top to give it a matte finish. Pretty much spot on. I like to cut out the body before I paint it. I use the snap and score method where you use a fresh hobby knife, score the cut lines, then use the scissors to start the cut. Then you can slowly snap away the excess. This gives you really clean lines. Before painting, you'll want to rinse the body with some soapy warm water to remove the mold release. This will help with paint adhering. Then we're going to mask off any black sections of the body and paint our red first. So freaking shiny. With Lexan, you're going to be painting the underside of the body, but if you want the exterior matte or flat finish, you paint a matte clear top coat on the exterior after you remove the overspray film. Next, let's talk about the custom 3D prints that I did to really make this look like the 2024 car as much as possible. I'll put links to all the print files in the description box if you want to print any of these out. Most of them, if not all of them, were free files. Some I had to modify, some I used as is. I printed all of these in PETG carbon fiber or PETG CF on my Creality K1C. Amazing printer, I have a full review on that. For a more budget-friendly option, you can check out the Ender 3 V3 KE, which I also love. Either printer will do all these prints just fine. And as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have a 3D printer, you can check out JLC 3DP, upload your files there. They will print them out for you and ship them to your home. First, I printed a driver halo. These were introduced in Formula One in 2018 as a huge safety structure to protect the driver's head in the course of a flip over. The 2017 Tamiya kit didn't have one, so I used a free file from Thingiverse. I also printed out these side mirrors, way more scale looking than the ones included in the kit. And these wheel fins here, I tried a couple options. The OpenRC ones were a little bit too thick, didn't have the right mounting, so I used a free file from Thingiverse, just made the walls a little bit thicker. I also printed this driver camera, added some yellow vinyl. That is Carlos's color. The secondary driver usually gets the yellow camera, helps to distinguish the cars from one another. The front wing was super important. The newer 2024 design is a lot different than the older model included in the Tamiya kit. The OpenRC 2022 file is a great replica, but had a different mounting bracket. So what I did is spliced on the correct Tamiya wing mount on it from another file, and it works and looks amazing. Next, we really had to get the rims right. The Tamiya kit came with spoked rims, so I 3D printed these aero caps. At first, I started off with the full OpenRC rim, but there wasn't a clear way to mount them, so I just cut off the end cap in my slicer and just printed those. I smoothed and sanded them with some Bondo, primed and painted them racing red, glossed the top with some self-leveling wax. This is Pledge Floor Gloss, a trick I learned from the modeling community. I then cut out and applied some racing circles with my vinyl cutter, and finally we glued them on the rims. Lots of work, but I think they turned out so scale. And lastly, the rear wing was also printed from a 2022 OpenRC file. It didn't have the correct mount to be able to fit with the Tamiya F104 chassis, but nothing a Dremel can't solve. I Dremeled down the kit bracket and then screwed on the OpenRC print to it. Let's just say it did the job okay. One of my favorite things to do on a build is integrate some really cool custom lighting. I worked with MyTrick RC. They provided these new flex LEDs and a couple different wafer lights to get the lighting in the rear wing to look so awesome. I used a little creative license here, strayed a little bit from our scale looks, but I think it turned out so cool. I used these flex LEDs. They're like bendable, and printed out this little spine here. You snap them right in. They look so cool. The flex LEDs plug into the SQ2 controller, which takes power from the balance lead in our battery. For our brake lights, I used their 17mm strip lights and a couple wafer lights in red. They have a little housing you can 3D print, glued that to the side of the wing. The brake lights are routed through a braking controller, which splits our throttle signal so you can have lights that dim and brighten with your braking. Alrighty, so we finished the build literally one day before I was leaving for Barcelona. It was a long trek, 5,500 miles across the world to Barcelona-Catalunya circuit, but so fun. We had tickets to all 3 days to practice, qualifying, and the race. If you ever have the chance to make it to a Grand Prix, such a fun experience. We even got to walk the track afterwards. We're going to the track! Did I get to meet Carlos Sainz? Was he able to sign my car? No. But after Barcelona, we headed up to Madrid for a road trip and stopped in at Carlos Sainz Karting. Carlos Sainz Sr., his dad, is actually a world rally champion, owns an indoor-outdoor karting facility. It was the most fun I've had in a long time. My cousin and I raced in 2 sessions. And for my first time karting ever, I placed 3rd of 15. So cool. An untapped skill I never knew I had. Definitely owe it to sim racing, so huge thanks to Camus Racing for the sim racing setup. Spain was amazing. I am so grateful for the opportunity to attend my first ever F1 race and build a scale replica of Carlos Sainz 2024 Ferrari. Definitely a dream trip. Huge thank you to our sponsor for this video, JLC 3DP online 3D printing service, as well as my patrons on Patreon for helping to make this video possible. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in a comment which motorsport RC crossover you guys would like to see next. That's a wrap. I'll see you later.